Hello. So I am back to talk with you guys a little bit about Marie's watercolors. And we're going to do some watercolor play and then do a copy of one of her watercolors so we can learn a little bit about that. So like her oil painting, her watercolor work is very feminine, pretty soft, very delicate in the way that she applies the paint. I am not a watercolorist, so this is kind of new for me too. I mean, I've obviously used watercolors in the past, but it's not something that I specialize in, so I'll be learning along with you guys. So a couple of things I want to look at is how she creates these really beautiful soft backgrounds. Let me zoom in here a little bit. Hopefully that's focused. I love the soft transition she gets in her backgrounds. You see it a lot in her work. It's really subtle and I really like how that looks. She kind of seems to block in color and that allows the color to just kind of fade and bleed and kind of do its thing. Now we don't know what kind of watercolor paper she was using. I have some cold press right here. I also have some hot press that I'm going to experiment on and see how it takes the paint. So we'll be playing around with both of those. I also love how she incorporates line work in some of her watercolor work. It looks like she may have used an ink pen to go in and you do some lines here, or a very thin brush. Again, here you see the use of her blacks, creating form and mass with the dark colors. And this looks like it was probably from the period around between 1915 and 1920. She started incorporating these kind of veil shapes and kind of like a lattice work that she looks like she went in with ink and did that. Some line work you see here in the hands. A little bit more moody than some of her other works. In the 1930s she did get more colorful, so you see a variation there on that. I love this one. It's so subtle and beautiful. I think it's really, really neat. And this was from one of her illustrations. And this was actually, I believe, the cover for the catalog of the ballet where she designed the set and the costumes. It was called Les Biches. And it's a translation for that is not what you would think it is. Biche is actually a female deer. So it's the does, basically. And she designed all the costumes for that and the sets. So it's pretty neat. Again, another moody piece where she's got the veils. These were created probably while she was in Spain, in exile, and she was definitely going through some hard times. I love the softness of this one, the tenderness. This is from one of her illustrations, from one of the books she illustrated. So I think I'm probably going to copy this one. I love this one. I think it's so beautiful. And so I think that's going to be my study. I already did a few. And I did this one. Widescreen. Oop, wrong way. So I did this one already before I started recording the class. And I really enjoyed it. Learned a lot from doing that. And then I did one of her darker ones, which was a lot more moody. Again, probably done during the time of exile in Spain. But I am anxious to do another one. This one is actually on cold press paper, so you can see a little more texture in it. You can see that there. And this one was done on the hot press.
so not as much texture. This one gave me some trouble, but anyway, I'm up for a third round. I can't help myself. I'm gonna do another one. But first I wanna do some play with you guys. So let's get started on doing that. I have a watercolor set. I've got some various brushes that will work with watercolor. And I've got obviously my fresh water and some paper towels, and let's get started. Okay guys, so I'm going to start off doing some of this background work and try and figure out how to do that well. So let's see how that goes. And I don't have a drawing on here or anything. I'm just playing, really. Just trying to see how the paper takes the paint. Trying to figure out how she laid in these colors and made them look so beautiful and soft. Now, I didn't wet the paper first. I could have done that and see what difference that makes. So maybe I'll wet it down in this corner before I put the paint on and see how that goes. Watercolor is kind of like ink. It's not very forgiving, so it freaks me out a little bit, but especially since I'm not used to using it. So don't be surprised if you're not used to using watercolors and you start using them, if you feel a little uncertain. That's totally normal. But it's good to try new things, right? Should probably tape this down because it's buckling a little bit, but oh well. Now I've heard you have to let watercolors dry before you mess up the layer you put down. So I'm going to set that aside and start on this one, and I'll try something different with this one. Maybe I will. Well, maybe I'll do more of a landscape look. In this one you can see that she kind of creates the illusion of trees and whatnot, so let's try that. I'm going to wet the paper this time. I like this brush. It doesn't have any hard edges, which is kind of nice when you're doing watercolor, I think. Now these are not super high quality watercolors, since, like I said, watercolor is not what I typically use. So they will dry quite a bit lighter. So I may have to go back in and do another layer. Okay, I think I'm overworking it because I'm starting to pull up the paint that's not dry underneath, I think. So I'm going to, maybe I'll put a little color on the sky. Oh, I know with watercolors you need to leave your whites. You need to know where your whites are going to be so you can leave them alone. You can't add them back in like with acrylic painting or oil painting. So that's something I'm not used to. So it's good to experiment and see what happens. Alright, so that's that. It's kind of running. Alright, I'll leave that one alone. And then let's see, this is the hot pressed paper. This one looks a lot smoother to me than her other work, so it looks more like a hot press. I think, you know, I'm kind of making an assumption. But it doesn't have the same textural feeling as this does. So, maybe this one also doesn't have a lot of texture. And obviously, you know, she would draw her figures in and all that, I imagine, before applying paint. But we're just kind of messing around, seeing how the paint behaves. I found that when I did my other watercolor studies that the hot press shows a lot more brush strokes than the cold press. That's just in my experience, or lack thereof. So in a way I kind of like the cold press better. I think it's a little more forgiving for a newbie especially. I like the smoothness of the hot press, but I don't know. Didn't particularly love how it showed every little mark. Alright, so those are some little practices. Try it out on your own and see what you think about. This one's pretty dry. It's kind of cool. I could see where I dabbed on the paint. It was really wet. It kind of left a cloudy looking pattern, whereas the washes on the side where I wet the paper, it's a little bit more even. And then this one is still drying, and I can see here I'm going to get some like watermarks where the paint was really wet, or the brush was really wet. And in the hot press, it's not quite dry yet, but very smooth. You start to get that nice sort of speckled effect I'm noticing in the corner of the hot press. Right here. Right here. That's kind of neat. And you see that in her work. You see that kind of speckly texture that comes through in a lot of her watercolors. You can see it a lot right here. These corners, very speckly. So I think what I'm going to do now that I just kind of played around creating some colors and some backgrounds
is go ahead and do a little study. I might do this one since I already have kind of the background. I think I can work with that. So I might do this girl. And I don't know, I might do this girl too. Okay. I'm gonna tape this down to something. Okay, I'm back. I've got my little piece of paper taped down to a piece of plexiglass. I highly recommend these, guys. You can get plexiglass pretty much like at any like Home Depot or whatever, and they'll cut it for you a lot of times. And they make great palettes. I use them a lot for my painting, and they're also great for just gluing something down or taping something down when you're ready to work on it. Okay, so I'm going to be doing this little lady, trying to, and so I've got a very light pencil. It's an F pencil, and I've got my kneadable eraser, and I'm gonna very lightly try and sketch this girl on here. Make sure you're looking at the piece that you're studying almost continuously. It's really easy to get caught up just drawing and kind of going off in your own direction, and I mean that's typically fine, but when you're trying to copy something, you really want to be looking at the piece every few seconds. So my girl's like way off to the side. That's okay though. I'm not gonna be concerned about it. Find the hairline. I need to bring it down a little bit. It's kind of like here. I'm muttering again. It's so hard to talk and paint or draw or whatever. It's very, it's tricky. Forgive me if I mutter sometimes. I gotta remember to speak up. Okay, so she's sketched in as good as she's gonna get for now.
There we go. There. So I'm gonna start putting some color in. I've got my paper towel next to me, so I can kind of see what kind of intensity I've got on my brush and just absorb some of the water as well. Being careful to not put the paint where I don't want it, because although you can lift watercolors, at least I've been told you can lift them, I don't know how effectively I'm going to be able to do that. So I'm trying to just be observant of that. And remember, these are going to dry lighter. It's also a good idea, guys, to have a little piece of watercolor paper next to you so you can test the colors before you put them on, so you can kind of really see what's going on. I am going to attempt to add a little bit of skin tone. Obviously my painting's going to have more darks than hers does, but that's okay.
She's used just the tiniest, tiniest bit of pink for the lips. It's so subtle. It's really beautiful. And you see a little bit of it in the cheeks. Just a touch. Oops. See, I ran into another color there. That's alright, I'll just water it down a bit. Now, if you notice how she's done the shadows on the face, they're just a really soft, little hit of a deeper, slightly darker hue, or slightly darker shade. I love the shadow under the nose. That's kind of gorgeous. And then the one under the chin. It's like the perfect shape. She really had such a beautiful way of being subtle in some areas and then bold in others. Obviously her watercolor, at least this watercolor piece that she did, was very subtle. But then she'll have those big dark eyes, which is a nice contrast. So you can see, guys, I'm testing out on a scrap piece of paper my strokes and my colors. I'm going to test this theory of being able to pick up the paint a little bit. Just dabbing it with a baby wipe. I feel like I'd overdone that shadow there. I have to keep reminding myself that things dry a lot lighter. he seems to have some pretty stronger pencil marks around some of the forms. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in there. I think I made my girl's nose a little too long compared to hers. But that's okay. No worries. Now I do notice right in this area, there is a very subtle amount of blue, actually, in there. Really soft. So I'm just gonna make those lips a little more pink. You see how it dries so much lighter. So you have to go back in and kind of correct. She does these great lips. There's always like this really great waviness to her lips. If you look at her girls, I really like them. Again, I kind of like that you can see her pencil marks. So I'm not too afraid to put some of those in. So anyway, I'm not going to take this much further, guys, because again, it's just a little watercolor exercise, a little study. But I hope you enjoyed playing some watercolors. I certainly did, and I think I'll be using them maybe more often. We'll stop playing at some point here. I get so into it. I haven't had lunch. I probably should go to the bathroom. I get a little focused. I guess that's good, but my stomach, if you guys could hear my stomach, it's like out of control. All right, I'm gonna hold this up and have a look at it. You know, it's not too bad. It's definitely my version of it. But I like it. That was really fun. So try this out, guys, and see what you think. This was on the cold press watercolor paper. And see how it goes. All right.
I'll see you guys later.